Welcome to the Lee Schools TV podcast. I'm Adam Wright. Joining us today is the Chief Financial Officer for the School District of Lee County, Greg Blurton. Greg, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Glad to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, all right. Well, so we're fresh off the election.
Yes.
The half-cent sales tax referendum passed.
It passed.
And you are in charge of the budget here at the school district, so we'll be talking a lot about that, about money, what's next after this proposal passed. But first, can we just talk a little bit about you?
Sure.
So you haven't been with the school district long. You joined
About
came
2
here
years ago.
2 years ago. Where'd you come from?
Yeah, so actually it'll be 2 years next week, November 14th. I came, before coming to the district, I worked in the banking industry, worked for a local community bank here, as well as a local trust and investment firm. So been around banking, lending, finance for about a dozen years. And I've always been around the school district, though, personally, and through work, most recently being on the Foundation for Lee County Public Schools, their board, and as their treasurer for a number of years. I've also coached lacrosse, boys lacrosse at Estero High School, have been a mentor through the Take Stock in Children program. So, and even when I started college, it was originally to be a teacher. So I've always been passionate about education. Never a thought as I've come through over the number of years that I would actually be in education. And so it's an honor to be able to, take the experience that I've had in banking and finance, and it's an honor to be the Chief Financial Officer for the Lee County School District.
And Veterans Day is on November 11th.
It is.
And I just learned today that you're a veteran.
I am, U.S. Air Force. Yep, and my dad and my brother are career Air Force, and my grandfather was career Army. So the military's been around in my family for a while, and I was proud to serve. Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, so let's get into it. So
sales tax. Let's get into it.
Yes.
Let's talk about it.
So it passed.
It did.
Very close vote, 52 to 48 percentage, right? What was your initial reaction to it passing?
How about that? That was really, I was like, how about that? We knew it was going to be close, and that night is getting home and starting to watch the news and seeing how the results are coming in, and initially as after the polls close and you see that 1% precincts reporting and it's 50-50, as close as you can get. So, and just prior to that day, the Florida School Finance Officers Association, it's made up of CFOs of school districts, budget directors, people in finance for school districts. Their November conference, their fall conference, we're actually hosting it this year here in Lee County. And there was a panel discussion that I was a part of CFOs who have had a surtax, a sales tax, whether it be a sales tax or any other kind of referendum that has passed, that is pending, or that has failed, and just talking about the experiences of that. So it was very timely. It was very interesting to hear all the different perspectives and points of view and experiences, and then to actually have come home and going through that, and just the elation that it did pass, and to know that that we did have great support for it, all the work that went into it. From our political action committee, from our our teachers, our staff, and just really stating the why and the need, and it passing. And so the work is really just beginning now.
And thank you to everyone who voted.
Absolutely, thank you.
So, if just in case anybody is watching this and isn't aware, so that the referendum will raise the sales tax in Lee County from 6% on the dollar to 6.5%.
6.5%
for a 10-year period.
10-year period,
unless voters pass it again. So it would go back to a vote
after 10 years.
After 10 years,
correct.
And if we even deem that necessary,
correct.
Right? And it will generate approximately somewhere in the ballpark of 60
million a year. And that's the average, based on historical sales tax revenue that Lee County has received. What we would approximate that we would get is about 60 million a year. So this does not go into effect until January 1st, 2019. So, this new year, upcoming new year. And we really won't start realizing the full effect of it until after the spring. So there's, I guess the best way to put it is a ramp-up period, if you will. But yes, we're estimating about 60 million a year in sales tax revenue that we would be getting, that would go towards everything that we've talked about, how we would use the sales tax revenue for taking care of what we already have, the maintenance needs, safety and security upgrades, and keeping our schools safe and secure, technology upgrades. I think you talked with Dwayne Alton about that in an earlier podcast. And of course, we are a growing school district, and it's keeping up with that growth and the building of new schools. All of those would be, the sales tax will definitely help those efforts.
So how does it work for people who may not understand the businesses collect the extra sales tax
That's
money,
right.
and then so where does the money go, and how does it get back to the school district, and how is it distributed from there?
Exactly. So when you are shopping and you're buying a pair of shoes or clothes, you're out retail. Again, except when you're buying groceries, when you're buying gas or medicine, those are excluded. But general sales tax, which has been 6%, now 6.5%, businesses collect that sales tax, and then they report it and send it to the state, and the state in turn sends it to Lee County and sends it to the school district. So when you are, handing your credit card over, your cash, and you're paying that sales tax, the money's not just right from there coming right into a bank account here at the district, just trying to make it as simple as possible. That's not how it works. So that's kind of the delay, and as I was saying, the ramp-up period. So that's how it will work over the next 10 years, and we'll be collecting the sales tax and appropriating it or spending it on the items that we've talked about.
So does it go into once the state sends it to the school district, is it then put in its own separate account?
We will have a funding line in our capital budget for that revenue. So going forward, actually, in our budget process for FY20, fiscal year 20, so the 1920 school year, in our capital budget, there's a revenue section and there's an appropriation section, appropriation being spent expenditures. There'll be a revenue line for sales tax revenue, just like it has for impact fee revenue, where there's a line item for debt revenue, so the revenue that we receive from the loans that we have got on our books to historically build schools. That will now be its own revenue line in that, and then how we're spending it or appropriating for it as well. So that'll be a new thing in this upcoming budget book.
Let's kind of break down the budget for people real quick if we can. So I'm sure a lot of people don't understand all the inner workings of how budgets work, especially for organizations as large as the School District of Lee County. I certainly have learned a lot over the past few months. So how, just generally, how big is the budget for the school district?
The overall Lee County School District budget is just under $1.5 billion. That's with a B. Billion, if you're an Austin Powers fan. 1.5 billion. That's
year?
Total. Yep, that's the total budget for the Lee County School District. And if we keep it as simple as possible, so your household budget, if you own your own business, or if you are in the private sector, not the public sector, the accounting and finance of that is debits and credits. Credits are coming in, debits are going out. It's your money that's coming in, and how are you spending it? Businesses have income and expenses. School districts and public accounting, we have different funds, if you will. We have our general fund, which is our overall operating fund to take care of the day-to-day operations of our district. That's where salaries are, the biggest part of our general fund, and just everything that we do to operate the school district. And as it relates to the sales tax, the main fund, the only fund that revenue will be utilized for is our capital fund. And the capital, when you think of capital, think of schools, building new schools, think of maintaining our schools, think of adding more safety and security enhancements to our schools, the hardware and the software of technology and upgrades in technology that we have going into those schools and throughout the district. So that's our capital fund. We then also have what we call a debt service fund. So this is where we have the debt that we currently have out for the schools that we have built in the past. And then we have a few other funds as well too, from our food service fund. So we've broken out, and most school districts are set this way with each of these different funds. So as it relates to the sales taxes, that capital fund is the primary fund that revenue will be collected and spent.
So the money collected by the sales tax can only go to the capital side of the budget.
Correct. That's correct.
I know a lot of people like to bring up, they wish they could see some of the money go to, increasing teacher salaries. Just any quick word on that? Just teacher salaries in general, where we kind of stand with that?
Teacher salaries, compensation in general, is a challenge for not just the Lee County School District. It's a challenge for most school districts in the state of Florida, if not all. And it has been something that we have been working on even as we've been going through towards getting the sales tax referendum passed. So over the past number of years and really ramping up this current year and how we're planning for the next year is how can we be more competitive in our compensation for our teachers, for our support personnel, for the staff and team that is here in this building. And so as we have always been doing is where are areas that we can continue to be more efficient, where are areas that we could reappropriate programs that are no longer necessary. Okay, so that was something that we budgeted for. Can that amount now be budgeted towards compensation? So we're looking at the big picture. There are also other districts that have a sales surtax of some kind that is being utilized for capital funding, such as what we just had passed and what we will be doing over the next 10 years. Some of these districts had referendums passed just this past Tuesday for additional millage to go specifically to their operational budget designated for salaries. That's an option and something that we can think about. But in the meantime, we just went through the sales tax. There was a lot of work involved, and we got it done. There's a lot of work to be done now on that side of it. We are really looking at how we are working internally on the general fund and on our operational side to see what we can dedicate towards compensation for our teachers and for our staff. And as we go through, what are the opportunities and obstacles that we have in front of us to really get competitive pay for our teachers.
So safe to say moving forward that is something that the school
It's our number one priority. Absolutely. Our number one priority is student success. But the only way that we get our students to be successful is to have great teachers and pay them what they're worth.
So going back to the sales tax and the money that we'll be getting from that, I know that we talked a lot about kind of leading up to the election, kind of what would happen, what would it mean for the school district if it didn't pass.
Right.
And, there was talk that, these schools needed to be built.
That's right.
Anyway.
Exactly.
So in order to do that, if we didn't get the extra revenue from the half-cent sales tax, that we would have to borrow more money and increase our debt. So can you tell us where we are debt-wise right now, and what this extra money from the sales tax, what that will mean for our debt?
Right. So historically, we have built our schools, most recently Bonita Springs High School, through financing, and we have gone out through financing that we call COPS, certificates of participation. So it's a loan. I'll just keep it as simple as possible. A loan, and to build schools, they're not inexpensive, and it's debt. It's just like a home loan that you may have, a car loan that you may have. We have this money as a loan, and we're paying principal and interest on it. So our principal and interest payment currently is about $65 million. We have more schools coming to be built. We have M, which is our next high school that will be built just outside of the Gateway community. And we're going through the pre-construction design phase right now, and early estimates, it's going to be between $80 and $90 million. That is something that we have already planned to secure COPS financing for. And that was something in our go-forward strategy with or without the sales tax, because the timeline, we're there. We're already in pre-construction, and we're going to need to have funding in place before a sales tax revenue is really going to start get rolling, if you will. We have the addition that we're building at Lehigh Senior High School. They are scheduled to break ground in January. It's amazing how fast time is flying. So we actually have a couple of options available to us for that, because it's a smaller project. It's not $80 million. It'll be around $12 million, as we can do short-term financing in the form of a traditional commercial loan with traditional lenders, or that can ultimately then be absorbed into the financing that we get for M. The other option that we have available to us now that we have the sales tax revenue is expected revenue to come in. And similarly, when you go for a home loan or a car loan, a lender will look at your historical income and your ability to repay whatever it is that you're going to that you need that loan for. So lenders for school districts that have an incoming sales tax revenue, they look at the historical sales tax and they say, okay, we expect you're going to receive on average $60 million a year. We can actually finance you a loan ahead of time with that and the revenue will help repay that. So these are options that are available to us. What is a good thing now? What is a good thing now is now that we do have the sales tax, the go forward strategy is we will go ahead with financing for the addition at Lehigh Senior. We'll go ahead with financing for the next high school triple M. And what we are doing right now, as soon as that sales tax passed, a lot of my colleagues, in talking with them about what they have done, best practices that we've already had these conversations. Now that we have it, confirming things that we know, things that we may not know, and the go forward strategy for our next 2 elementary schools, our next 2 middle schools that we have coming, and then our 2 rebuilds should the state approve those. That's a significant amount of money, almost a little under $300 million. How we appropriate the sales tax monies and balance debt with that, because you may or may not know interest rates have been going up significantly just over the short term, and they're expected to continue to rise. That's great for the monies that we have in our savings, if you will. That interest is going up, but as you start incurring more and more debt, that interest, we're paying $65 million right now, that will increase significantly. And no one likes to be leveraged. No one likes to be, for the lack of a better term, up to their eyeballs in debt. We don't believe that's good business. So with the sales tax, it does give us that tremendous opportunity to really balance more now how we take that additional revenue, as well as maybe not have to go out for that much debt, which we won't. Which that's a great thing. That's a very good thing.
So can we? I don't want to put words in your mouth or anything, but can we expect to see that debt decrease smaller over the next 10 years?
It's going to go up. It went up just this current year with Bonita Springs High School opening its doors, and so now that's going forward. We went out for COPS financing for that. We'll have financing out there for the Lehigh Senior Edition and Triple M. So it's going to go up a little bit. Well, it's going to go up. It's going to go up about $100 million. And so that debt payment, that $65 million, we're projecting will go up. But over time, as now then you have the 2 elementary schools and the 2 middle schools and potentially the 2 rebuilds, now we can start balancing the sales tax revenue as well as our other revenue that we get in from the capital into our capital fund, that now we don't have to continue to see that debt going up and up. We can see it level off and even really decrease. If we weren't a growing school district, Adam, and we did not need to build these schools, if you look at our capital budget and you look at our debt service, we actually have, there was a big drop off in our debt service over time. But with these new schools and the projections, if we had to go into finance, you see it going up. So now with the sales tax, we are looking forward to seeing that level out and ultimately decreasing.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
So kind of looking at long-term and short-term projections or whatever. So short-term, what, in your role as CFO, what are the next couple months going to look like for you now that the sales tax is passed?
So the next couple months is really going through and we've already had our capital budget approved for this current school year, and we've had, as I've said, the go forward strategy with or without the sales tax. So now we actually can go forward with the capital budget that has that line item for sales tax revenue, and so now it is really going forward and confirming the capital project list and going through and now developing, we've already developed the timeline, but finalizing the timeline. Okay, so we have this revenue coming in. We expect it to start coming in, especially after the spring and the summer. And now getting to the maintenance program. We know what we have budgeted for maintenance, so here's additional revenue that we have coming in. How is that going towards maintenance? How's that going towards our safety and security and technology? And also, ultimately, as we get longer into this, the debt in building the schools, how much is going to go towards that? The market and interest rates can help dictate a lot of that as well too. There's a lot of other factors that we continue to that we'll keep our eye on that could change the overall strategy. So these next few months, as we get through the holidays and into next year and start realizing the sales tax revenue, we are just really confirming everything that we've been working on over these past number of months when we decided to put this on the ballot for November 6th. It just happened to be great timing that my colleagues from other school districts our size, larger, smaller, that have surtaxes in place, have had them for a number of years, and also those who just had it passed for the first time. There were 12 school districts that had it passed this past Tuesday. I have the added benefit of just having them all here in our backyard for a conference, and we actually have a meeting to, hey, we just want it, so what are you doing? Here's what we have, anything that we're not thinking about, and then also working with our advisors. We have great advisors in place, financial advisors that have led us for a number of years on a number of different items and helping with the monies that we have in our savings accounts, if you will, and just our overall strategy. So we've really have been having a summit, if you will, this week, and just really confirming everything that we have been talking about and things that maybe we haven't thought about, and just getting everything in place. And there'll be a briefing to the board now that we have it. Okay, we've got it. Here's what we've talked about. We're moving forward with this. Any other ideas, things that have come up since? What's important to know is this is a 10-year time frame. A lot can happen over 10 years. A lot of priorities can change. People move in and move out. We've had the unfortunate situation with red tide and the green algae that could affect tourism. We've had three horrible weather incidents, from Michael this year, Maria and Irma last year, that affected us directly, those two. You just never know what the future holds. So what's important to know is the project list, the timing of everything can just change with an incident that happened in the tragedy at Parkland as well too. How safety and security has always been a priority, but really opening our eyes to things that maybe we've thought about, but we have to do. So all of those things, and so it's important just to know that we continually have these discussions, and we'll continue to be flexible in how we go forward to the priorities of the school district and our community here in Lee County.
If you want to learn more about the half-cent sales tax, maybe you're just now kind of learning about it after the election, you can visit our website, www.leeschools.net/change for change. We have a lot of information there. I believe there's also a list of projects for each school there, so you can see exactly where the money will be going for each individual school in our district. I know that another thing that is on the short-term list of priorities is to get the oversight committee.
The oversight committee,
formed. Yes. So talking about the importance of transparency. Working for a school district, handling taxpayer dollars. We want to make sure that the public knows that they can trust us to use the money appropriately and efficiently. So we're going to have this oversight committee. Can you tell me a little bit about? So I know that they're taking volunteers to be on this committee. Is it 15?
That's right, 15
people?
members,
Okay.
and our board talked about it yesterday, as a matter of fact, in their briefing. So the application period is open, and the deadline to submit your application to serve on that oversight committee is at the end of this month, end of November. And so each board member will be appointing 2 members of the community, and one of the members will serve a 2-year term, and the other member will serve a 4-year term, so they're staggering terms. The superintendent also can appoint a member that would serve a 4-member term as well. So a 15-member oversight committee. And they
and the reason for the staggering terms is
just to keep newer people coming through on and some people just can't dedicate 4 years as well. So because the people that we have encouraged to apply are people that have experience in the areas that we're going to be spending the revenue, in safety and security, technology, infrastructure, IT, construction, absolutely construction, and everything that goes into building schools, from architecture, design, and the actual building of the schools.
Finance, I'm sure,
finance,
too.
absolutely, because it's the revenue coming in and how are we appropriating for it.
Well, and staggering them will prevent if a bunch of people decide to leave the committee.
Correct.
You're not just getting a swath of brand new people who don't really
people,
know what's been going on for the past few years.
And then the ramp up period with them and educating them on what has been and what is and what we're looking at. Exactly. So the staggering piece of that. So we're receiving the applications through the end of the month, and then our each board member will appoint 2 members. Dr. Atkins will, our superintendent, will appoint a member, and they'll have the staggered terms going from there.
Do you know where people can go to apply?
It is actually on our website. So the similar link and area on our website, the Change for Change. There's actually a link, an oversight link, and there's an online application, and you can also download the application as well too.
So the job of this committee will be what?
So the oversight committee will be an independent committee made up of members that we just talked about, who we will, how often we meet is still to be determined, but basically we will be reviewing the capital budget. We'll be reviewing the revenue that is coming in from the sales tax, and then how we are appropriating it going forward. It's part of the whole transparency and going along the similar lines of our board advisory committees, such as our finance advisory committee, our construction advisory committee, is really, here's what we have, here's what we're doing. What are we not thinking about? What everything going along as we have all talked about, just in general strategies, things that as we that we are doing this the right way and being as effective with the sales tax revenue as possible.
So we talked kind of about the short term,
right?
And we've discussed things can change over
10 years,
a decade.
Yeah.
But looking more long term, big picture. How do you kind of see these next 10 years playing out? I mean, I don't want to ask you to predict the future, but...
Do you have a crystal ball, Adam? No, it's, 10 years is a long time, but it's a cliche. Time goes by so fast. It really goes by fast. I mean, the 2 years that I've been here, I just blinked and here we are. So, even though 10 years it's a long time to plan, I will tell you, what it does look like. And one of the things that we as a school district are doing right now and will continue to do going forward as a best practice is forecasting our budgets. We've always forecasted our capital plan out 5 years. Our work plan that we submit to the state every year is a forecast that goes out 20, 25 years. A lot changes. So we will be continuing to forecast not just our capital budget, we do our work plan every year, but also our general fund budget and forecasting those that budget as well. Because we have to really understand more now so than ever of what money, what can we expect from revenue coming in, and how are we going to appropriate for it going forward. So 10 years, our enrollment growth continues to rise. In the briefing yesterday, Soretta Ralph, who's in charge of our student enrollment department, and Dr. Creel, our chief academic officer, were briefing the board on our student enrollment plan, updates to our student enrollment plan. And Soretta had made a mention that just as of yesterday, we have seen, this is just through October, we have seen a net of over 1,000 new students just since school started. And we have, so that's net, that's students coming in and students that do leave. That was a net number. And that number continued as we've looked past on other school years in the past. That number continues to go up after we come back from winter break. That's when it kind of, we see our where the enrollment really goes up. So why I say that is we are a growing school district. We have been a growing school district. I think everyone has seen that capital graph where you see our enrollment continuing to go up and our funding continuing to go down. Over the next 10 years, our enrollment forecast is we will continue to be a growing school district. So that keeping up with that growth and building the schools that we need to build, maintaining what we already have, keeping our students, our staff, everyone that is involved in our district at the school level safe and secure, keeping up with the technology. Technology changes every day, and to be able to keep up with that, the revenue that we'll receive from this sales tax will absolutely help. But I think everyone, if they've been listening, we've heard that this isn't the savior. It's not going to take care of all of our capital needs. It's going to put a chunk. It's going to take a chunk out of it. Yes, it will help, but there still is a need above and beyond that from a capital need perspective. So, over those 10 years, we're still going to do the things that we've always been doing. We have added revenue. It's fantastic. But what do we have to continue to do to find ways to continue to be more efficient and do more with less? And that's where our board, if you were part of the briefing yesterday where they were talking, this is, thank you to the voters for voting for this. But, we really are still building our relationships with our state legislature and our local elected officials. Funding public education in the state of Florida has been a continued challenge. And how are we going to do this together to make education the number one priority and funding education appropriately? And I think Ms. Patrici even mentioned it yesterday, one of our board members, that wouldn't it be wonderful if we can go to our Lee County voting base and say, thank you for voting for the sales tax. And in a few years, the state is funding education based on everything that education's a priority, and we're funding it appropriately. The sales tax has helped, but based on what the state's giving us now, we don't need it anymore. And that's an ultimate goal, and maybe
that's a possibility.
There's a lot of views and politics involved in that,
sure.
And just everything that we went through with the sales tax. So there's a lot of discussion and a lot of work that would have to go into that. Absolutely, but who knows what could happen in 10 years? Who knows?
So you come from a finance background, obviously. Can you talk a little bit about homeowners in Lee County? Can you talk about the relationship between quality, world-class schools in the area and how it can affect, property values?
Absolutely. And, whoever is watching this, if you're a realtor or if you're just recently moved into Lee County and you have kids or you're thinking about starting a family, realtors, one of the first questions they get asked is, what is the school system like? What school will my child be going to? School districts, school systems are one of the, if not the number one economic driver in a community. Just think about it. We are usually one of the largest employers, and we flip-flop with Lee Health every year. We have over 12,000 employees. We're usually one of the number one employers in a community. In addition to the employment that we have, the students that graduate, the students that ultimately stay in the community and work, we drive up property values. A good education system, a good school district, a thriving school district raises property values. People want to move here. If you just keep it as simple as possible, a desirable community has everything that you think about it. It has good shopping. It has good restaurants. It has a great school district. You're proud of the kids that are in our schools, that are graduating from our schools and becoming great members of society. The successful school district is the number one economic driver in a community. And what we are started the discussion with Florida Gulf Coast University is doing just that, is doing an economic impact study on the economic impact that the Lee County School District has in Lee County.
I was going to ask you about that next. I was kind of leading towards that. So I don't know how early it's too early to talk about, but so you're working with FGCU.
Right. We've reached out to them. We would like to have this study done. They have an Office of Regional Impact, and they have done different studies like this. And we haven't done one for the Lee County School District specifically, and we'd like to do that. We think we know. We're pretty confident in the number that it's substantial, but we want an expert to help us with that.
Figure out exactly what.
the economic impact. So, for instance, there have been other districts in other states that have done this, and it's in the billions. We have $1 billion impact on our community just from the employment that we have, the people that work for us and what they spend in our community, the students that we have in our school district and graduate and becoming part of the workforce. Just think about everything that goes into the economics of a thriving community. A school district has a big part of that. That is a big part of that.
Anything else half-cent sales tax related you want to talk about?
The words that come into my mind have been coming into my mind, since Tuesday night is thank you. You had mentioned, yes, just being the steward of taxpayer dollars as the chief financial officer, and just having, the pulse of what is going on in the district financially. This is a tremendous help, and the successful vote for the sales tax, it's tremendous. But the work, as I said in the beginning, the work is now really just starting. One way or the other, if we didn't get it, it was going to be that much more of a challenge. But we're a growing school district. We have tremendous capital needs, everything that we've talked about. This is absolutely going to help, and thank you very much for that.
All right. So if you don't mind, with Veterans Day this weekend, do you mind talking a little bit about your experience in the Air Force?
Sure. I enlisted in the Air Force, so I graduated. I'm originally from Maryland, and graduated high school and actually started college, as I had mentioned, to be a teacher. I had wanted to be a history teacher, and was going to a local community college, and it was a small college, and pretty much half of the people I graduated high school with were at that school too. I felt like I was still in high school. And as I had mentioned, the military had been around in my family for a long time, and one of my friends had just enlisted and had come back, and he was already traveling and sharing his stories of everything that he's seeing and experiences. And long story short, I enlisted in the Air Force, in a career field completely different than what I'm doing now. I actually help maintain avionics and electronics on F-15s and F-111 fighter jets. So avionics, flight controls, radios, radar, weapon systems, and was stationed in the Panhandle at Eglin Air Force Base. And so after I had gotten out, I was 4 years in the Air Force. Once I had gotten out and I moved down here to Fort Myers, Lee County, and actually got into worked for GTE Wireless, which is now Verizon. I don't know if anybody remembers GTE back in the day.
I don't.
Yeah, so I had worked with them, and ultimately got into banking, like I said, about 12 years ago. And it's amazing just how paths change and lives change, and ultimately where your path is going. There's a Dr. Seuss quote around that, where you'll go, But yeah, so was in the Air Force, which brought me to Florida ultimately, and I've actually been down here in Southwest Florida for about 22 years.
So how would you say your time in the Air Force impacted you as a person?
Discipline and attention to detail. One of the things that you get that is drilled into your head and brainwashed, if you will, is attention to detail, which has absolutely helped me tremendously in my career, where I am today and proceeding today. One of the other things, so the military has been an incredible influence in my life, even to this day. My dad was retired from the Air Force and worked for the NSA. So he's been around the military a long time. My brother just retired from the Air Force a couple of years ago, and he works for the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office in New Hampshire, not in Florida. So I've been around it a long time. I have numerous friends who have been retired career military here and from where I'm from and all over. So, Veterans Day, it's an opportunity just to say thank you, and just to remember, people that and who have served, and say thank you. Just as we're saying thank you to the voters who helped us pass the sales tax, thank you to our veterans, every single one of them out there who have served.
Yes, thank you very much. And so you have wife and kids?
I do. My wife,
Jennifer. You have
Jennifer.
an 18-month-old?
I have an 18-month-old daughter. Her name is Dahlia. She's 18 months old. And then I have a son, Jack, who actually graduated from Estero High School 2 years ago and is a sophomore at UCF studying aerospace engineering. He tries to ask me to help him with his math homework. And even though, in finance, the math that he's doing... No. So he's a sophomore at UCF, and our daughter 18 months old. So both ends of the spectrum there. But I love kids, and to be able to experience my son and everything that he is experiencing now as a sophomore in college, and he even plays lacrosse for the university there, and going through it all over again with a little girl, with Dahlia, 18 months old, who's a future Lee County School District student. It's awesome. It's awesome.
All right. I think that's
is that a wrap?
Good place to end it.
Yeah. All right. Very good.
Unless there's anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, just shake your hand.
Thanks.
Thank you. And there's a lot that we got a long way to go now. 10 years. So as we go through this, through the oversight committee, there'll be updates. There'll be briefings. We have always said that we are transparent in what we do. We will always be transparent in what we do, especially with now that we have the sales tax. You've entrusted us with that. I know that even those of you that did not vote for it, as you watch this podcast, we will be transparent with this. Ask me questions, ask us questions, and any information that will be out there. We're going to do this right. We always have, and we always will.
All right. Greg Blurton, Chief Financial Officer for the School District of Lee County. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Adam, very much. Thank you.
Thank you for watching and listening. We'll see you next time.